What happens when one of entertainment's most enduring legends walks into daytime TV's most opinionated panel, and the conversation goes completely off the rails? What began as a simple interview turned into a storm with dramatic confrontations and heated arguments. This is the story of Cher versus The View. It was a live collision between truth and ego, a confrontation so raw, so explosive, that the world couldn't look away. And trust me, this talk show won't disappoint you. It'll be worth every second of your time. The lights hit the stage, and the familiar theme music of The View faded out. Cher walked in slow, steady, calm. Every step was deliberate. Every move carried weight. But across the table, Joy and Whoopi were already sizing her up like predators waiting for the first slip. Their smiles were polite, but their eyes told a different story. Sharp, assessing, hungry for a headline. Joy leaned forward, her red hair catching the studio light. "Well, look who's still running the show," she said, her voice honeyed with sarcasm. Whoopi gave a laugh that didn't sound real. "It's incredible, Cher. 5 decades and you still find the spotlight." Cher smiled, slow and unbothered. "Guess it keeps finding me." Joy tilted her head, pretending to compliment her, but the words came out like knives. "Yes, it's impressive. Some people just don't know when to quit." Cher let the pause hang, the kind of silence that made producers hold their breath. Then she looked straight at Joy, her tone light, but her meaning razor sharp. "Oh, I quit plenty of times, Joy. I just never stayed gone long enough for people like you to feel safe." The air shifted. Whoopi's smile froze for half a second before she covered it with a laugh. Joy blinked, caught off guard, but tried to shrug it off. "Oh, come on, Cher, don't get sensitive. We're just having fun." Cher's reply was quick, smooth, but carried a sting. "I'm not sensitive, darling. I've just been in this business long enough to recognize a setup when I see one." Whoopi's eyes narrowed slightly, her tone soft but loaded. "Oh, no one's setting you up. You know us. We're family here." Cher leaned back, unflinching. "Maybe. But in some families, people smile at you while sharpening the knives." That line hit harder than anyone expected. The tension thickened. Joy forced another laugh, the kind that sounded more like defense than humor. "You're something else, Cher." Cher tilted her head, the ghost of a grin playing on her lips. "Yeah," she said softly, "and that's exactly what scares you." At that moment, it was clear to everyone in the room. This wasn't going to be another cheerful interview. It was going to be a duel. And the legend sitting across from Joy and Whoopi wasn't planning to lose. Joy leaned forward, elbows resting on the table, her voice dipped in fake warmth. "So, Cher, how do you stay relevant when the industry's changed so much?" The question sounded innocent to a casual viewer, but Cher caught the venom underneath. She didn't blink, didn't even shift in her seat. "By not asking cheap questions," she said flatly. The words hung in the air like smoke. You could almost hear the crew holding their breath. Whoopi let out a slow laugh, pretending to diffuse the tension. "She's just teasing, Cher. We love legends here." Cher turned her head slightly, studying Whoopi with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen every trick in the book. "Funny," she replied, her tone smooth as glass. "Legends don't usually get ambushed by their fans." Joy's smile faltered for half a second, but she masked it with a chuckle. Whoopi glanced at her, that silent exchange between co-hosts that always meant one thing. They were in sync. A plan was forming. "We're just curious," Joy said again, tightening her tone. "At your age, do you still feel pressure to prove something?" She leaned back, arms crossed, acting relaxed, but her eyes stayed locked on Cher like a challenge. Cher took a beat before answering, almost as if giving Joy the chance to rethink the question. "No, Joy," she said evenly, "but apparently, you still do." Joy blinked, caught off guard, but Cher wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her voice cutting sharper now. You've been sitting at that desk for 20 years asking questions you already know the answers to. Maybe the pressure's not on me anymore. Whoopi's jaw tightened, that maternal calm starting to crack. She forced a laugh, but it came out thin, almost defensive. Joy opened her mouth to push back, but nothing came out. Cher sat back, her expression unreadable, her tone steady but commanding. You wanted honesty, didn't you? That's what you said before the cameras rolled. Neither Joy nor Whoopi responded. The tension was thick now, visible, almost physical. What started as a soft-pitched interview had just turned into a live-fire exchange, and for the first time, the hosts weren't in control of their own table. Whoopi adjusted in her chair, the softness in her face fading. When she spoke, her tone was slow and measured, the kind of calm that hides a blade. You know, Cher, she began, some people say when entertainers get too political, they lose the art that made them great. It wasn't a question. It was a setup. Cher turned slightly toward her, resting her elbow on the table, her eyes locked in. Some people say a lot of things, she said quietly, especially when they're afraid of artists who think. Whoopi's brows lifted, her tone turning cooler. So you're saying we're afraid? She asked, almost daring her to go further. Cher leaned in, her voice low and sharp. If the shoe fits, and judging by that reaction, it fits perfectly. The air between them grew heavier, a tension no camera could soften. Joy saw her chance and jumped in, her voice quick and cutting. Cher, don't you think politics divides fans? You've always been outspoken, but doesn't that alienate people? Cher didn't even blink. Her words came out clean, every syllable deliberate. No, Joy. Hypocrisy does, and there's plenty of that sitting at this table. The sentence landed with a quiet violence, enough to make Whoopi glance down for the first time. Joy tried to mask her discomfort with a smile, but it came out wrong, too tight, too forced. Cher stayed perfectly still, her tone calm but loaded. I'm not here to sing for approval, she said. I've done that already. I'm here to tell the truth. If that divides people, maybe they weren't listening in the first place. The silence that followed was thick and awkward, the kind that made even seasoned hosts forget their lines. Whoopi looked like she was about to move on, but Cher's words had already hit their mark. The legend wasn't defending herself anymore. She was taking control, piece by piece. And for the first time, Joy and Whoopi both realized this wasn't an interview anymore. It was a reckoning, and they had just picked the wrong woman to corner. Joy shifted in her chair, pretending to glance at her notes, but the smirk on her face gave her away. You talk a lot about authenticity, she said, her tone suddenly sharper. But rumors say your team controls your image down to every tweet. Doesn't that make all this honesty a little rehearsed? The words hit like a slap disguised as curiosity. Cher's eyebrow arched, slow and deliberate. She took a breath, then let out a soft laugh, not amused, but dangerous. Oh, honey, she said, her voice steady and cold. I don't need a team to handle people like you. I've done it solo for 50 years. Joy's fake smile froze, her fingers tightening around the cue cards. For a split second, her confidence slipped, but Whoopi quickly stepped in, her tone low and heavy with false calm. We're just asking questions our viewers want answered, she said, trying to sound reasonable but failing to hide the bite underneath. Cher turned toward her, her expression calm, but her eyes gleaming like polished steel. Then your viewers must be bored, or blind, she replied, because what you're doing isn't journalism, Whoopi. It's gossip with lighting. That line cut through the room like a blade. Whoopi's face hardened, her trademark cool slipping away for the first time. Joy tried to jump back in, but Cher's voice overrode hers, calm and clear. You both keep calling it questions, but let's be honest, this is theater. You bait guests for clicks, not conversation. Joy scoffed, You're being dramatic. Cher leaned forward, eyes locked on her. No, Joy. You are. You've been playing the same character for 20 years, and you still haven't realized the script got old. Whoopi opened her mouth to intervene, but Cher wasn't done. You call it the view, she said quietly, but the only view you're protecting is your own. That sentence landed harder than anything that came before it. Joy leaned back, trying to look composed. Whoopi blinked twice, caught off guard, and for a brief, chilling moment, the mask of control slipped from both of them. The table was silent. The performance was over. And everyone could see it now. This wasn't just a tense interview anymore. It was a slow unmasking, and Cher had just torn off theirs first. Joy leaned forward again, sensing she had to reclaim control before the interview completely slipped away. Her tone was steady, but there was a spark of hostility she couldn't quite hide. Don't you think your recent comments about certain politicians were reckless? She asked, drawing out the last word like a challenge. Cher didn't flinch. She clasped her hands together on the table and smiled faintly, the kind of smile that meant danger was coming. No, she said calmly. I think cowardice is reckless, and there's a lot of that going around daytime TV. The tension snapped tight. Whoopi's voice cut in, trying to play mediator but dripping with condescension. You sound angry, Cher. Cher turned toward her, eyes cool, expression controlled. I sound awake, she replied. There's a difference. Whoopi blinked, caught off guard by the precision in her tone. Cher didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm was louder than anything they could say. Joy exhaled sharply, muttering, well, some people might take it as hostility. Cher didn't miss a beat. Some people mistake honesty for hostility because they're not used to hearing the truth out loud. Joy's lips pressed into a thin line, but before she could answer, Whoopi jumped in again, her voice heavier now, trying to regain control. People say your temper makes you difficult to work with. Cher tilted her head, a slow smirk spreading across her face. People said the same thing about every woman who ever scared small men. The room fell quiet again. Joy blinked, Whoopi looked away, and for the first time since the segment began, it was clear neither of them knew where to go next. Cher leaned back in her chair, voice steady but sharp. You call it difficult, she said. I call it having a backbone. It's funny how that word changes meaning depending on who's using it. No one spoke for a moment. The air felt heavy, electric, almost alive with tension. And in that silence, it became obvious. Joy and Whoopi weren't running this interview anymore. Cher was. Joy's voice turned sharp, her tone dripping with mock sympathy. Maybe the issue isn't fear, she said slowly. Maybe it's ego. You've had a long run, Cher. Maybe it's time to let go. The words landed like a slap. Cher blinked once, then leaned forward slightly, her tone colder than before. Let go of what, Joy? My relevance, or your illusion of control? Joy smirked, trying to play it off, but her voice cracked just a bit. No, just your delusion that people still care. The insult hung in the air, cruel and deliberate. Cher let out a quiet laugh, not amused, but cutting, the kind that made the whole room shift. Oh, they care, Joy. They're just tired of you pretending to. Her tone was calm, but the power behind it made Joy's smile vanish. You could almost hear the crack in her confidence. Whoopi jumped in fast, her chair scraping against the floor as she stood, trying to assert control. All right, enough. We need to stay civil, she said, her voice low but forceful. Cher's gaze snapped to her, unshaken. Civil? She said, her tone like ice. You both came here swinging, and now you want manners? Whoopi's expression hardened, but before she could respond, Cher's next words sliced through the room. Sit down, Whoopi, before you hurt your legacy more than you already have. The silence that followed was deafening. Whoopi hesitated, visibly thrown off, and for a moment, no one spoke. Cher leaned back, her voice steady, controlled, and lethal. You can dress it up as conversation all you want, but this isn't journalism. It's ego with microphones. Her gaze shifted between the two hosts, her tone soft but firm. The difference between you and me is simple. I don't need this table to stay relevant. You do. Neither Joy nor Whoopi said a word. The balance of power had flipped, and everyone in that studio knew it. What started as an ambush had turned into something far more dangerous, a reckoning they couldn't stop, led by the very woman they thought they could corner. Cher leaned forward, eyes locked on both Joy and Whoopi. The warmth in her face was gone, replaced by something sharper, years of restraint stripped away. "You invited me here to tear me down," she said evenly, her voice carrying that unmistakable tone of command. "But I've outlasted presidents, producers, and parasites. You think you're next?" The words landed heavy. Joy scoffed, but her voice shook slightly. "You're proving our point. You can't take criticism." Cher tilted her head, calm but dangerous. "Oh, I take it just fine," she said. "I just give it back with interest." The tension was so thick it felt like it could break the air. Whoopi crossed her arms, trying to look composed, but Cher's focus never left her. Her voice dropped lower, deliberate, every word hitting like a bullet. "You think sitting behind that desk gives you power? It doesn't. Power doesn't come from hiding behind questions. It comes from standing up when people try to silence you, something neither of you seem to remember." Joy's jaw tightened, but before she could speak again, Cher stood. The shift in energy was immediate, like gravity had changed direction. She stepped closer to the table, slow and unhurried, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "You preach women's empowerment while tearing down every woman who intimidates you," she said, eyes flicking from Joy to Whoopi. "You call it the view, but all I see is insecurity hiding behind cue cards." The line hit like a thunderclap. Whoopi's eyes darted away, Joy opened her mouth, then closed it again. Cher didn't stop. "You sell outrage as conversation, drama as truth, and call it empowerment. But the truth is, you're just scared of losing the spotlight. You built your careers criticizing women who refuse to play small." Her tone softened, but it only made her words sting more. "And maybe that's why I'm here today. Not because I wanted to be, but because deep down, you needed to be reminded what real strength looks like." For a long moment, no one spoke. Joy's hands trembled slightly. Whoopi's face went blank, and Cher just stood there, steady, unbroken, radiating control. The reckoning had arrived, and for the first time in years, the View's hosts weren't running the show. They were part of it. Whoopi's face hardened, the calm she'd been clinging to finally cracking. "You're out of line, Cher," she said, her tone low but shaking slightly. The air in the room felt heavy, every second stretching longer than it should. Cher didn't blink. She stood tall, her voice steady and sharp as glass. "No, Whoopi," she replied. "I'm just finally saying what the rest of Hollywood's been too polite to say. You've turned from a truth teller into a gatekeeper." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Whoopi froze, the authority she once commanded slipping right through her fingers. Cher's gaze moved to Joy, deliberate and unhurried. "And you," she said, her tone dropping even lower, "the self-appointed queen of snark, still haven't realized that cruelty isn't comedy." Joy's jaw tensed, but she said nothing. Her smirk was gone, replaced by something closer to fear. The silence between them was unbearable. Whoopi's eyes shifted downward. Joy looked away entirely. Cher had taken the floor, and every word that followed was a verdict. She turned toward the main camera, her expression calm but piercing, her voice filled with a quiet, unwavering fire. "You want tough questions?" she said. "Here's one. How do you sleep at night after building a career mocking women braver than you?" The studio went dead silent. No comebacks, no fake laughter, just the sound of breathing, uneven, tense, and real. Cher stood still, her presence filling every inch of the space. Her words didn't echo, but they didn't need to. They stayed in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore, impossible to clear. Whoopi lowered her eyes. Joy tried to move her cue cards, but her hands trembled. Cher didn't need to say another word. She had landed the final blow, not loud, not cruel, but with the kind of truth that leaves a permanent mark. Cher reached for the mic, her movements slow, deliberate, unshaken. The chaos that had filled the room only moments ago seemed to fade into a thick, uneasy silence. She looked at the two women across from her, Joy and Whoopi, their confidence now replaced with the hollow stillness of people who realized too late what they'd unleashed. Her voice was calm, but carried a weight that filled the space completely. "I've faced worse than this table," she said quietly, "and every time, I left standing taller. You two? You'll leave explaining why America just watched you crumble." Neither of them moved. Joy's lips parted like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Whoopi stared down at the desk, her hand gripping the edge as if to keep from slipping. Cher placed the mic on the table, the soft tap of it echoing louder than any argument that came before. She straightened her jacket, took one last look at the two women who had tried to humiliate her, and gave the smallest, coldest smile. Then she stood, her voice cutting through the silence one last time. "The difference between us?" she said, eyes fixed on Joy and Whoopi. "I fight with truth. You fight for airtime." And just like that, she turned her back to them, walking off with the kind of grace only someone unshakable could carry. Every step she took was measured, powerful, the quiet kind of power that doesn't need an audience to be felt. Behind her, Joy and Whoopi sat frozen, their empire of attitude and control crumbling in real time. The image lingered. Cher, unbothered and undefeated, walking away from their game like she'd just ended it on her own terms. No shouting, no applause, no music. Just the sound of her heels fading down the studio floor, and the undeniable truth that a legend doesn't need a stage to win. She just needs to stand up and walk away. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss another explosive moment from television's most unpredictable talk shows. Thanks for watching, and trust me, the next one will hit even harder.